We share leadership training that builds trust, interdependence, genuineness, empathy, risk, and success in the workplace. Here's our host, Diane Crampton.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for your patience as we were connecting some sort of streaming issue this morning, and I'm glad you're here. And for the new people who are just joining us for the first time, welcome. I am so glad you're here today. So take a moment and say hi to me in chat so I know who is here. All right. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. Last week, we launched a 3-part discussion on collaboration to strengthen your teams. And last week, we discussed behavior. And if you're just joining us today, that's okay. You can still access the recording of that conversation here on the Tiger Success Series business page. And as a reminder, hop on a call with me to explore why the Tiger 6 principles are so effective in streamlining high-performance team behavior and relationship-focused leadership. I love to share, so hop on a call with me. Today, I'm discussing the impact of competition on collaboration, and we'll be sharing graphs from the book Tigers Among Us, Winning Business Team Cultures and Why They Thrive. And next week, the topic is about the advantages of community for making collaborative behaviors, skills, and operations more sustainable. And if you have questions or comments, please put them into chat. Dolan, my team member, will be sharing these questions with me so that I can address them. And I'm going to be sharing for about 15 minutes, and then we'll be opening up to your questions and ideas. Are you ready? Okay, give me a thumbs up. Okay, let's get going. So, what is the role competition plays in collaborative operations? The Tiger's 6 principles, trust, interdependence, genuineness, empathy, risk, and success, support behaviors that spark collaboration and a cooperative way of working. By contrast, the command and control work culture supports centralized, top-down decision-making and an internally competitive-based group process. This is the type of process that rewards individual achievement and people working independently to get work done. And collaborative and internally competitive group processes are the two main ways work gets done. And this goes for work culture too. Therefore, consciously choosing a high performance group process or way of being is one of the most important decisions business leaders can make. And this is because internal competition between people on a team breaks down collaboration and disrupts how high-performing teams cooperate to get things done through streamlined roles, goals, and relationships. And competition is also based on the reality that someone is going to win and others are going to lose. So when competition is interjected into a collaborative team process, the result can produce power struggles, distrust, disengagement, outright quitting, and lack of accountability. So now I'm going to show you a chart from our book. This chart is one of many from the book Tigers Among Us, Winning Business Team Cultures and Why They Thrive, that show in polarized terms the difference between internally competitive operations and collaborative ones. And when I say polarized, I'm using the term to depict the ideal because we know that top-down and command and control organizations often operate through some complex processes through cross-functional teams, and that's fine. And there are times when a leader must be directive in how they lead their employees. And today's leaders must be able to use direction wisely and not habitually. So, on the left hand side of the chart is the individualistic group process with internally competitive practices. And on the right side is the collaborative and team based group process with collaborative practices. So, let's first look at the emotional connection and impacts competition offers. In the individualistic group process, the emotional connection to work is often subordinate to following directions. In the collaborative and group-centered group process, the emotional connection to work is high. In fact, employees often take on additional tasks. They volunteer for them, such as serving on problem-solving teams because they want to enhance their skills. And one of the benefits that is that it helps their organization and and their team and their personal desire to grow professionally. So now let's look at how competition is directed between the two group processes. On the internally competitive side of the chart, competition is directed toward resources, position, and power. And Gallup just reported from their research that the right managers are selected less than 82% of the time in organizations like these. Managers might have been great competitors and did a job really well, but leading people and developing them is not a high priority in the directive mindset. I tell you what to do, and you do it. And people who offer suggestions may or may not be heard. And some of them might even be retaliated against. So if you've ever had this experience, working in your past experience, let me know. Are you familiar with this happening? All right. So if you remember from our behavior conversation, this is a more lineal mindset because, as we discussed, relationships are just now being considered important because of high turnover and relationship focused leadership gaps. So, on the collaborative side, competition is directed towards streamlining work processes and procedures that contribute to improved work quality, cost savings, and market share. So, for our quality assurance people in the discussion today, and the excellent question asked about QMS in last week's conversation, this is where your QMS standards are so important for tracking quality and the work side of operations, and where there is no cookie cutter approach to the people and behavior side because each team is different, just like each human being is different. So this means that employees are trained in collaborative group process skills that are often considered soft skills. And examples are communication, conflict resolution, decision making, planning, boundary management, and problem solving. Others would be like emotional intelligence, for example. These employees are more trained and empowered to help improve the organization. And I will be sharing case studies about this during our Summer Tigers Leadership 6 Principles training. Now let's look at who competition benefits. On the internally competitive side, competition to win benefits the most successful individual or department. On the collaborative side, competition benefits everyone who meets or exceeds expectations. So let's unpack this, given what we have learned so far. In the internally competitive side, the most successful individuals are considered the CEO, directors, and executive team. So we often see them receiving the top compensation in the organization, and in many cases, they don't have to be paid based on their performance. They are paid based on their titles. In collaborative group process, a bar is set, and success is achieved when people meet or exceed this bar. And the bar is realistically and usually quite high, which encourages people to work together to help one another succeed. And managers develop and coach employees. Employees jump in to help one another, and problems are brought to light very quickly so they can be resolved at the root cause. So anything that impacts achieving or exceeding that bar is resolved, and people are engaged and committed in this. So there are different compensation formulas that benefit group achievements, such as profit sharing and gain sharing. And this is up and above salaries. So collaborative group process is more performance-based and not title-based, with outcomes that benefit the entire organization and your coworkers. In the internally competitive group process, working with others benefits self-promotion. It helps employees climb the ladder to higher titles. In the collaborative group process, working with others to achieve goals is how work is done and benefits everyone. In the collaborative group process, team leaders for projects and planning don't have to be managers. They are taught how to facilitate group process that taps into the intelligence every employee brings to the table if facilitating collective outcomes is one of their strengths. People don't have to be the manager to secure some autonomy. It's also projects like these based on strengths that help their executives fill the next level of their leadership pipeline. So now let's look at commitment and accountability. On the internally competitive side, high commitment exists for following directions and doing your job correctly. In the collaborative group process side, high commitment exists for contributing to the organization's success on multiple levels, including achieving goals and doing a job correctly. Frontline employees, for example, might be brought onto planning teams or other cross-functional teams based on their strengths. So you can see how the individualistic and internally competitive group process benefits the individual. On the collaborative side, group process benefits from building and maintaining relationships, achieving goals, and filling roles that are strength-based. And what is really interesting is that both millennials and Gen Z employees learned how to perform team skills for achieving group process, some of them from grade school to college. So it's no wonder why it is hard to get them to stick around in command and control organizations. Now, if you are considering consulting, coaching, or reskilling for manufacturing leadership and for growing startups, which mindset do you think is needed most now? Go ahead and put your thoughts into chat. If you think it's the collaborative group process, you are correct. The collaborative group process outcomes also correct the top 3 concerns CEOs have today. These concerns are attracting and retaining talent, filling their succession leadership pipeline, and employee engagement. So in review, last week we discussed how important the Tiger Six principles are for building group behavior and process norms that are anchored by trust, interdependence, genuineness, empathy, risk, and success. And now we looked at the role competition plays in individualistic and command and control organizations and those that are collaborative. So let's see if we had any comments that came in. I see a couple here from Adele. Adele says he totally agrees. And I think, Adele, this is pertaining to how managers are elevated into positions of authority. But when the leader or owner or businessmen, their aim are financial experience cut, it is hard to put employee emotional and uplifting their skills. Therefore, it's hard to implement. Any advice? I think that, again, as leaders upskill to more collaborative and conversation-based development of their employees, and that includes, being able to coach and develop them, this breaks down. And the financial piece is really important because there are statistics that show that collaborative organization outperform financially so many of the top-down command and control organizations. In fact, there was one case study that came forward earlier this year about a team of 5 people in an organization that actually launched a new intervention or innovation, really quickly. I mean, it just happened like this because they had everybody in the room that needed to make the decision. They problem solved through it. They created a plan for it. They executed that plan, and bam, it was done. And that often takes so much longer in your top-down competitive organization. So that's a good comment and a great suggestion. And I think we had another one that came out from Adele. The compilation benefits are resolving a big challenge in internal risk management in many and any QMS. This needs a business strategic group, including the board, to realize that QMS is not an overhead cost. Am I right? Absolutely. And I think bringing board members into that conversation is really important. And I think you're spot on with that process, because oftentimes board members, they're sort of tracking, or they should be tracking, the financials in the organization, especially when it comes to accountability in whether or not executives are being paid based on their title or based on performance. And I think boards of directors that get involved in this are also protecting all the stakeholders in companies, including their stockholders, when they do this. So that's a great question, and that's a super comment. So do we have any other questions? We did have one that came in earlier. Dolan, can you put that up? Okay, so the question came in from a teacher whose last day of school is today. So she can't make it today, but she'll be catching this replay because she did register. And the question is, isn't competition how we become more accomplished? So my response to that is no. Competition can do this. Yes, Jennifer, it can do this. And we see this in classrooms a lot. In fact, we even had the bell curve that was available for so many of us when we went through school. Some people got high grades, and then on the other side of the bell curve, there had to be people who failed. But competition is not the only way to become more accomplished. And why competition, while it can be a driving force for improvement and can push individuals to strive for excellence, it's not the sole path to accomplishment. Collaboration, for example, can be equally powerful in fostering accomplishment because by working together with others, sharing knowledge, and leveraging collective strengths, individuals can achieve greater outcomes than they could on their own. And that also goes to Adele's question about people working together to get things done more synergistically. So, and this is because collaboration promotes synergy, creativity, and innovation, allowing people to tap into diverse perspectives and expertise. And also, personal growth and accomplishment can come from intrinsic motivation, passion, and the desire to continuously learn. So when people have a genuine interest in a particular field or activity, because that's where their strength is, which we see in the workplace, and we understand that in the education field, we have to teach many broad subjects. But those individuals who are really interested, and it's just an innate strength for them to, let's say, do chemistry compositions, or high level math, or for others who are more linguistic in their skills. When they have that interest in their field or activity, they are more likely to invest time and effort to improve their skills and achieve mastery. And we see this a lot in the collaborative workplace. And I'm sure that you also see this among your students. And let me give an example of this. When I was in college, I coached a pre-med student in college in English composition because his English scores were not going to get him into med school. And he, in turn, coached me in chemistry. We both got better, sharing our strengths. And also, mentorship and guidance from experienced individuals can be problematic sometimes in command and control organizations. Remember, there is that competition to be the best in order to climb the ladder to higher titles. So getting mentorship going sometimes in internally competitive organizations is more difficult if there is the fear that mentoring somebody and sharing your expertise with them can mean that they end up taking your job from you or leapfrog over you to get a position you wanted. So helping coworkers can be counterproductive. And I've seen this in my career. Leaders taking other ideas and claiming them as their own, for example. And if you have seen this too, give it a thumbs up. It is also important to note that the impact of competition varies among people. And there are some people who are demotivated by competition and others who really thrive with it. So in some organizations, people find that internally competitive process is counterproductive or demotivating. Dolan, are there any other comments or questions? Adele, do you have anything you would like to ask at this point? Now, for those of you who are going to be viewing this on the replay, you can still put comments into the comments section, and I'll be checking and I will be answering those. So we do have one. If competition can uplift the organization in toxic work environments, it's supported by the CEO. I agree. Then I think competition is still needed. Or I think completion is still needed. Unfortunately, good people leave the organization. My question, what QMS risk management can do to fight and understand this principle? That is a great question, Adele. I think when you put together like a cross-functional team and you bring frontline employees into this conversation along with others and including managers into the conversation, you will get that you will get what people will want you to measure from a risk management standpoint. And that is a great question because it is a risk issue. It's a huge risk issue because talent turnover, as we discussed last week, is a very, very expensive loss of income for any organization. So I'd say put together a cross-functional team on this because in organizations, you have a wide blend of people with different skills and talents. And it's important when you are looking at a problem like that you want to resolve and you want to get the feedback from your frontline employees too, and others doing the work. Pulling together that team will give you what it is they want you to measure. And oftentimes that will be different based on what the organizational goals are, what the business exists for, and who's involved in it. So I think that's a great discussion. I put together a cross-functional team on that, and they will tell you what they want you to measure from a QMS standpoint. Great question. It looks like we are getting very close to the end of our discussion. So if you have further questions, go ahead and put them in comments. I will be checking and I will answer them. Just check back in this training to be able to see them. And hop on a call with me if you want to explore this future. And there are case studies in the summer leadership training that I'll be sharing. Now, what's important to know about the summer leadership training is that right now, there is an early enrollment advantage of 50% off until that ends, which is at the end of this month. I might extend it for the first 5 days in June, but the problem is there are resources I want to get to you to that in that training, and we're depending on third-party carriers getting that to you. So the link to that training is also in your resources. So if you look at the comments and go to the bottom of the page, I put all the links for you to take your conversation deeper into this conversation. So I will be sending you an invite to click to be included in next week's conversation, same time, same place, on the importance of building work communities where roles, goals, and relationships thrive. And Adele, this is also an important one because we can talk about how that community strategy is important for nailing down those measurements that's going to keep ongoing quality high in your collaborative operations. So thanks everyone for spending time with me today. Love these comments. Adele, thanks for being such a high contributor today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Then we'll be taking a break for a few weeks, maybe through the month of July, actually, because that's when we'll be doing a lot of our leadership training for that summer course. Feel free to hop on a call with me, and here's to your success.
Thank you for attending our webcast today.